Unit 3. The Bell of Arti. In Italy, there was a little town called Arti. Hundreds of years ago, it was ruled by a good king called John. King John of Arti did his best to rule his people well, but he was sad to learn that, in spite of all his care, his people were sometimes unfairly treated. "What shall I do?" he said to himself, "to ensure justice to even the poorest of my people?" After brooding over the matter for a long time, the king thought of a good plan. Some days later, workmen were seen in the marketplace hanging a large bell outside the clock tower. From the bell, a long rope hung right down to the ground. While the people were wondering what the bell was for, the king came riding up with his knights and lords. The heralds blew their trumpets and called out in loud voice, "The king wishes to speak to his people. Let all hear what the king has to say." All the people of the town crowded round to hear, and the king said in a loud voice, "Listen to me, my people. You are wondering why I have hung this bell in your marketplace. It is the bell of justice. Whenever any one of you is wronged, let him pull the rope and ring the bell. I shall hear, and at once one of my judges will come to attend to the complaint. As the judge will have to report to me afterwards, he will see that justice is done even to the poorest person." Hearing this, the people were overjoyed, and they shouted, "Long live our good King John!" The king's plan worked well. At first, the bell was often rung, and whenever there was a ring, the king's judges saw that justice was meted out to the wronged person. The king and his judges were so strict that at last victims got frightened, and there was less and less need to ring the bell. After some years, a new bell rope was needed, for the old one was worn out because of constant use. Indeed, the rope had become so short that only the tallest man could reach the end of it. While a new rope was being made, a man cut a long trailing branch from a grapevine and tied it to the end of the rope. "Now, even a child can ring the bell," he said. A few days later, the people heard the bell ringing. They were surprised because the bell had not rung for a very long time. So, some of them ran to the marketplace, and one of the judges too rushed there. But when they reached the spot, all they found was an old horse eating the grapevine fastened to the rope. Every time he gave a tug at the grapevine. The bell rang. Some people grumbled and said, "What a joke! A horse ringing the bell." But the judge said, "Even a horse can ring the king's bell of justice. You can see he is half-starved, and he has rung the bell to complain against his master. Who is the master of this horse?" "Why," said a man, "he belongs to an old knight, who is such a miser that he won't even feed this faithful old animal. The horse served him well for years, but now that he is old, he has turned him out into the streets to fend for himself." The judge at once sent for the old knight. When the knight came, he said to him, "Your old horse has rung the bell of justice to complain against you. Though he has served you faithfully for years, you have left him to starve in his old age." The knight laughed and said, "Is this a joke, sir?" "No," replied the judge. "It is serious. What do you have to say?" "What nonsense!" cried the knight. "Can I not do what I like with my own horse? Must I keep a useless horse eating off his head in my stable?" "You ought to be ashamed, sir," said the judge, "to treat an old faithful servant like this. Your horse has appealed to the king for justice, and he shall have it. You shall build a good warm stable for the horse, and feed him properly every day, and I shall see that you carry out my orders." All the people cheered, but the knight held his head down in shame. And when the king heard of it, he was very pleased and said, "Well done! Even the animals in my kingdom get justice."